This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
Now, prepare yourselves for a Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels special edition. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello again, Scoundrels, and welcome to this Scoundrels Special Edition. I'm Dennis, and with me are my friends and co-hosts Jay Krebs and Darth Taxus. How are you doing tonight, you guys?
Hey, it's so great to be talking about Resistance again, so really looking forward to this special edition.
Same as I always am.
I was eggs.
All right. Well, tonight we are discussing the winter finale of Resistance, Station Theta Black, and we're going to take a brief look back at the first half of this season 1 of Resistance. Going forward, this is a full spoiler discussion, so Taxus, sound that spoiler alert. And Scoundrels, if you are still here, you've been warned. Proceed at your own risk. So, this episode begins when Kaz borrows the Fireball to shuttle himself to a meeting with Poe Dameron. Naturally, the Fireball is missing a stabilizer that Tam hadn't had the chance to replace, and no one bothered to tell her that someone was going to take the ship out. Poe shows up just in time and uses a tractor ring to pull Kaz to safety as the ship begins to malfunction. And he happens to be in another Alderaanian blockade runner. So, interesting beginning. Is it just me, or has the Fireball kind of been underused so far, considering that it is in the logo for the show? And I think this is like the third time we've seen it fly.
Yeah. Well, I think just like with a lot of the other characters, it's we're going to get more maybe background on it perhaps, but it's more of a teaser than anything else. But yeah, it's kind of a character in and of itself, isn't it?
Yeah, I was expecting to see it because Poe's like, yeah, our techs will take a crack at her fixing it or whatever. And so I'm kind of expecting to see it all like shiny and good looking here when we come back, because that's the last we see of it in this episode.
That's a good point. I hadn't really thought of that. But so from there, Kaz gives Poe his copy of the First Order's proposal to Captain Doza. Then Kaz gets to meet with General Organa. She has a mission for both Kaz and Poe to investigate a potential First Order outpost. So Leia's really clear that this is a recon mission and that Poe is not to engage the First Order. Mm-hmm. So this is kind of
he just plans on dating them for a while.
So this is kind of building on this whole notion that Poe's a bit of a loose cannon. That was, I don't think that was really came forth in The Force Awakens so much as it was established in The Last Jedi and some of the Poe Dameron comic. But they're really going with that now. That while as brilliant a pilot as Poe is, he's a little overeager and he's not the leader that Leia wants him to be yet, and he doesn't really think through the consequences of his actions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that. And of course, we can see that in hindsight because we've seen The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. But if this were to be, I guess, our first introduction to Poe, then it does set the stage for sure for the kind of personality that he has.
Yeah, I kind of like it a lot. You're right. I mean, he does kind of seem like he's more your, classic sort of, I don't know, your missing Han Solo character, to a certain extent, except he's trying to play by the rules, if you know what I mean.
A little bit roguish.
Yeah, a little roguish, a little devil may care, hey, we'll figure it all out later. Shoot first, ask questions later, that whole thing.
He's
and that's
definitely very suave.
Yeah, that too. And, so I'm liking this portrayal of Poe more and more, and I guess I'm just kind of wondering why he's always saddled up with that other droid and BB-8's still staying with Kaz. I guess it's sort of like, I don't know, if BB-8's not with Kaz might end up getting killed with that other droid or something,
Well, I think there's something to that, Taxus. I think BB-8 it's never been said explicitly, but I kind of get the impression that he's like R2 in a way. He's a bit more of an elite type of droid, astromech droid, where CB-23 has become BB-8's little friend, but I kind of get the feeling that she's much more of a by the book. My job is to help with navigation. I don't do anything else, whereas BB-8 is a bit more clever.
Yeah.
And then of course there's the off-camera reason that BB-8's a familiar character and it's okay for him to be around Resistances for Star Wars audiences to identify this one particular droid with, whereas they're not going all new like they did with Rebels, or for some reason. So.
Yeah.
All right, so Poe and Kaz take a pair of X-wings and head out into space. They track down some beacons and they find the First Order outpost inside a mined-out asteroid. Poe's easier to get inside and take a closer look, and in the hopes of avoiding First Order detection, CB-23 flies both the X-wings out to a hiding place in the asteroid belt. So I don't know about you guys, but when I saw this asteroid, I was like, I know it's a theme, and it's the ring theory is popular, but it's just kind of this. Once again, and we have a complete resource depletion by the Empire / First Order type of a thing. I mean, I'm fine with it, but kind of, I don't know. There's something about this is just kind of sticking with me. Is just kind of well, of course, not terribly original. Maybe I'm not sure. What
You're
did
not
you all
really
think?
thinking outside the box, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's just kind of reinforcing the idea that the Empire and the First Order now just basically take and suck the life and then move on. They take what they need and then they move on. So once they get all of the resources from one planet or, one area, and it's no longer of any use to them. So I think it is kind of setting up that whole, again, theme, that storyline, that this is what they do.
Right. I guess here's the other thing. I guess maybe I can put my finger a little bit more squarely on it. In Rebels, we had a lot of tie-ins with Rogue One, and as fans, we always knew that the Death Star was lurking in the background, that the Death Star was being built, and there was all these resources, kyber crystals and everything, shipments that were getting intercepted by the rebellion, but they didn't know what they were for, and that type of thing. In Resistance, we already know that Starkiller Base is there. I'm assuming some of the resources that are here are going towards Starkiller Base, but it just kind of feels like we just have this story where we always kind of were on the verge of discovering the Death Star. Just like we know there's a Resistance, it's a little bit flipped because the Resistance hasn't taken over things yet, but we're on the verge of discovering Starkiller Base and another super weapon. And so kind of, I think what you were saying, Taxus, it's a little lacking on the outside of the box. Don't get me wrong, I'm really glad that this story flipped to a conversation, to a conflict between the Resistance and the First Order, as opposed to some of the weirdness that's going on Colossus Station.
Yeah.
Because the show's called Resistance, and otherwise it didn't necessarily need to be. But I kind of think having the First Order presence there is key to that.
Yeah.
But again, it just kind of seems, the story just kind of seems repetitive of what we saw in Rebels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. It's sort of like, yeah, they just don't. I mean, is there any other way that they can branch out and do something interesting? And maybe they will. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Maybe this is all just kind of establishing again.
Yeah. The Poe Dameron comic does just a good job of giving, having Poe try to hunt down Lor San Tekka and creating conflict with the Resistance that way. That I'm not sure, that we had to necessarily resort to this. Let's investigate something going on in the unknown regions. There's something out there. We don't know what it is, and we're getting these breadcrumbs that are leading us to Starkiller Base. But
right.
Anyway.
Well, the Deadlanite, didn't they say that was used for blasters?
Yeah, but they mined out it seemed like an excessive amount for blasters, though. That's kind of what, with Rebels, we also had the TIE Defender project going on. So we had all these, we had all these other things going on as well. But it's just, maybe I'm reading this wrong, but we always get these glimpses of Starkiller Base. And, the Resistance doesn't know about that yet. And so I kind of get the feeling that we're talking about more just, blaster production here.
Right. Well, that's what I think you mean too, at least the way I took it from what you said as far as breadcrumbs are concerned, because obviously, to me, I'm thinking, oh, well, I don't think they're going to use this for blasters. Maybe it has something to do with Starkiller Base as far as the firepower is concerned from, the abilities that it has to do what it does. So maybe that was the reconnaissance that Leia was talking about
Right. I think we're on the same wavelength there. So
Yeah.
while investigating the outpost, BB-8 determines that the First Order has scheduled it for demolition. Before they can investigate too much further, a security droid discovers them and attacks. Poe managed to destroy it, but they are uncertain whether the First Order was alerted. Not too long after that, Captain Phasma and Major Von Reg lead a mission to destroy the outpost, and they know that there are intruders aboard.
Yeah.
So it is really cool to see both Oscar Isaac and Gwendolyn Christie reprising roles in a single episode. But
How much did this episode cost?
well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much they get for voice work. Oscar Isaac is doing a lot of stuff lately. I don't know if either of you have had an opportunity to see Into the Spider-Verse, but he has a brief cameo in that.
Oh, really?
Oh no, I didn't.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
That's cool.
It took me a second to realize it was him, but anyway, I don't want to spoil anything beyond that. I'm not sure exactly what Gwendolyn Christie is doing right now. Maybe outside of Game of Thrones, but it is cool that they got these actors to come back. I don't know. You may have also noticed that the actress that was doing Leia got replaced from the first episode of Resistance.
Huh.
There's been no statement on that, but I think it had something to do with her mimicking Dr. Ford's voice on social media, but that's a discussion for elsewhere.
This is a bad idea.
But at first I didn't notice until, for some reason, it stuck out in my mind. I was like, this is quite how I remember Leia sounding in the first episode, but there it is. So Poe is doing his best. Kaz is antsy to leave the station, and Poe insists on finding out what the First Order is up to there. We know they're going to destroy the station, but he wants to know more about what the purpose of the station was for. In the control room, they finally get answers. The First Order is using the station as headquarters for Mine Deadlinite, as we previously said. And as you mentioned, Jay, that's primarily used to make blasters. This Deadlinite was first introduced in the Chewbacca miniseries. Did either of you read that? That was out a couple of years ago. Did anyone have a?
I love it.
No.
It was okay. It was
fun.
It was fun, but at the time I don't remember it. The best stuff happened in the fifth issue of that 5-issue miniseries. But I don't know. I was not I'm trying to remember what the main character other than Chewbacca's name was. There was a girl in the mine. Her father was trapped there as well.
Yeah.
And she was kind of a troublemaker, and she was all right. But at the time, it didn't really have any long-reaching ramifications. I mean,
Did
it still
Saul write
doesn't.
that one too?
No, that was Jerry Duggan that wrote that one. But anyways, so they did, again, tying the universe together, they did use Deadlinite from there. So, the First Order's there, and they're ready to destroy the base. Phasma orders the Stormtroopers to spread out with the explosives. Despite their best efforts to evade the Stormtroopers, Poe and Kaz soon find themselves surrounded. Poe stalls long enough for them to get into the position to blast some of the explosives and then rendezvous with CB-23 and their X-Wings. So he really did try hard not to engage them, but at the same time, he was not going to leave until he knew what was going on there at that base. I had a hard time faulting him for that. I mean, he was on a mission, and Leia said, don't engage them. But, at this point, what was he
what are you supposed to do, right?
Right.
I thought that was I thought it was pretty we've always talked about how the shows slowly escalate, you know what I mean? As obviously the audience gets a little older. And I don't know, were you a little shocked by the level of violence in this one compared to what we've seen before? Because all of a sudden you're hearing war, you know what I mean? He's shooting them. Blasting troopers in the chest.
But also remember that a couple episodes he shot the Kowakian monkey lizard.
That's true. That's true.
Now, granted, that was by mistake, and the reaction on his face was priceless when it happened. And the Kowakian, other monkey lizard running off was also hysterical. But I don't think I'm overly compared to the one episode where the First Order is shooting at Kaz as he's scaling the outside of the high tower, and they're missing, and it's almost more comical. There is definitely an escalation here, Taxus, because it's much more deliberate with the violence. But the pirates showed up not too long ago and ransacked Colossus Station, and there was a lot of fisticuffs going on there. Maybe perhaps I guess it's the fact that some of the action here is terminal. There's a difference, but you're right. There is an escalation here.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of weird how suddenly they're slamming the gear with that. Not that that's a bad thing, but I'm just
and I don't know if it's maybe because we got this. I think also with Rebels and to a degree with Clone Wars. It takes a couple episodes for them to get kind of the feel of the show, and it seems like it takes a few episodes for the creators to get the feel of the show, or to get to kind of get the tone under their belt. And I think it's kind of been something that's been adjusting over the first half of the season.
But I love the fights. I mean, the scenes are great. How do you feel? I mean, now that you've had a while to see it. How do you feel the anime plays into the action sequences like this?
The animation style?
Yeah.
Well, Jay, I'll let you go first. What do you think about it?
Well, I think it is interesting. I'm sitting here listening as far as the style of the action between, excuse me, Poe and Kaz, and then the way that Phasma moves. She is so much more fluid and liquid in her movements. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I truly loved about this episode is that she was really mesmerizing to me. And then you've got Poe, who is, the ultra spy, very suave kind of thing. And then you've got Kaz that's still kind of the ooh, moving around like, oh, what am I doing? And the whole blaster thing with him, pretending. It almost reminded me of Rey the first time that Han handed her the blaster, Yeah. But I was actually kind of surprised at his accuracy when he turned back and shot the control panel to shut the door. So I do feel like there was a couple of different almost styles of animation going on at the same time with this, but I feel that with each scene, it fit whatever was going on very well.
Mm-hmm. You described it as anime, Taxus, and I know that was an inspiration for this show. I just don't feel like it's not traditional anime. No. I'm thankful for that. I do like the style of this show. One of the things that I'm really appreciative of is that with a lot, this is much more hand-drawn, at least looking. I don't know exactly how they animate it. I get the feeling perhaps from the Resistance, what do they call them on StarWars.com? But when they go into the episode guides, and especially some of the background art, that there is perhaps some computer animation going on here with this, even though it doesn't look quite CG like Rebels and Clone Wars did.
Right.
But they are very consistent with the characters. They do craft models for each one of these characters, as for reference sake. I think it kind of reminds me more than anime. It kind of reminds me some of the old Disney stuff that came out with, especially as kind of Jay was alluding to with Kaz's movements, because he'll come running around a corner with his hands flailing, and he's very loud and boisterous.
Right.
And, he seems to a degree, he seems kind of like much more like a Disney character than I can think of any Star Wars character in animation has been up until this point. Yeah. But it's but I like it. I do. I like it more than I thought I was going to. I think another area of this animation that's improved over the course of the series is the flight of the ships.
Okay, right.
I remember back in the first episode, we were seeing all these ace pilots and they were having a race, and I just didn't feel like they were moving that fast.
Right.
And maybe it was just because, again, their background is an ocean world, and so you don't have a whole lot of things for them to move against. But I feel like with the episode where Yeager's brother showed up, and especially when they get out to space and they have asteroids and stuff to fly around, that you get a much better sense that they're really moving. Yeah, and there's more frenetic and energy going on in the scenes.
Yeah, I agree with that. You guys said something that kind of touched off something I was thinking about, and it kind of relates to the violence thing. So, have we seen Kaz actually kill anybody yet? Even in a ship, like ship to ship combat?
Well, are you talking about just Resistance or the movies?
Resistance, Kaz. Yeah. I'm trying to remember. I don't think
he shot somebody. He shot one of the ships in the first episode. He shot one of the TIE fighters, didn't he? That was pursuing the Republic X-Wings?
Yeah, but I don't think he finished it, though. Wasn't that the...
Well, I thought there was Von Reg and a couple other TIE fighters, but my memory may be bad. And then he shot at least one here in this episode.
Because I was trying to... Because the whole thing about, like, you know, here, kid, here's a blaster. And he's like, okay. It's like, note to Republic Navy. You know what I mean? Work on your small arms a little bit more. I mean, I don't know. I just felt like it was kind of weird. Like, I guess there's a certain amount of protection mentally. You know, you might think if you're shooting at a something that's a human sitting in a non-human target. You know what I mean? Then there is like actually looking at somebody. You know what I mean? While you're pulling the trigger, and you know, of course, Poe's completely over it. But I just noticed that, you know, it's like you said, Jay. I mean, he was accurate when he was shooting the panel, but yet whenever he was shooting at everybody else, he was really kind of bad, you know? So I started thinking, I couldn't remember if he'd actually pulled the trigger on anybody, like, terminally yet, you know, even in a starship.
It's definitely not like Rebels. I mean, Sabine would shoot people right in the face.
Right.
So I think there's something to that. But at the same time, when this show was being billed, you know, it was promoted as being like for 8-year-olds, and then they changed that to like children of all ages. Yeah. And I couldn't, looking back, now that you brought this point up, I can't help but think that perhaps that initial idea was based off of maybe the first episode or two before the people that are marketing this really got a feel for what this show was.
Right.
But because I think it's definitely more violent than I think we were led to believe. And it's not, well, we're going to get to that in a second when we kind of look back at the first half of the season. But let's finish up this episode real quick.
Okay.
So they get out of the station and they're in their X-Wings, and Poe and Kaz are now trying to evade Major Von Reg and other First Order TIE fighters. The pursuit ends when Phasma orders the destruction of the outpost. Kaz and Poe are flying hard and doing their best to avoid the expanding explosion behind them, but Kaz momentarily appears to have been perished in the explosion until it is revealed he survived by using an asteroid to shield himself. I don't know about you guys, but I really liked the dogfighting, or so to speak, you know, as they're flying around the outpost. Kind of reminded me of Rogue One, reminded me of a couple scenes from The Force Awakens. But that's the type of thing I've been wanting to see in this series that I feel like we're just now getting.
Right, I agree. And it's definitely nice to finally see some of that. And, you know, you talk about ring theory and Kaz hiding on the asteroid. Well, you know, Obi-Wan did the same thing on an asteroid.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so did the Millennium Falcon. Huh. So, you know, we've got some of that going on there too, some throwbacks.
Did he use the technique that Poe taught him to do that? That kind of engine brake thing?
Well, I mean, I think that was an anti-pursuit technique that Poe taught him. You know, he just kind of to pull back on the thruster and then go shoot straight up.
Right.
Whereas he pulled into a dead stop and parked on the. So I don't know. I mean, if it was, they didn't call it out as such.
Yeah.
But regardless, I mean, you know, it was not obvious because they didn't have, unlike that episode that you're referring to, signals from Sector 6 when with my favorite, the Kowokian ape lizard and the monkey lizards. You know, they made a point of going over that maneuver at the beginning of the episode so that it could be used, successly later in the episode. Right. We didn't get any type of introduction to that maneuver at the beginning of this episode. So, but finishing up, they then go ahead.
I have one more thing. So, okay, this dogfight. I love how it ended with Phasma telling the Major, you know, break off your attack. He's like, no, I got him. If you don't, you'll die. You know what I mean? And she's not threatening him like, I'll kill you or something. She's telling him, look.
Matter of factly.
Yeah, you're just in the blast radius and you're not paying attention to this. So that's interesting because in the very first time we see the Major in this episode, she's like, I'm going to the space and you're coming with me because I need you. You know, and he's like, well, why should I do this? You know what I mean? It felt less military structure and more like sort of tribal. You know what I mean?
Well, Von Reg feels like he talks back to authority.
Yeah,
I mean, Captain Phasma is clearly in charge, and here he is questioning orders, and so finally, I mean, I get the feeling that he's important enough that he gets away with some of this stuff. He's that good a pilot, and that perhaps not the average major or lieutenant or anyone else in the First Order Navy would get away with this type of thing.
I'm not sure what the rankings are, but it's like if you're going with the Air Force system, major is actually a higher rank than a captain. If you're going with the Navy
but
system,
she's been giving him orders throughout this entire series, so it's clearly not the traditional. I know what you're saying, Texas, because that's what I thought too when I first saw this. But the first time we saw them interact, Von Reg was reporting to Captain Phasma.
Yeah.
And I know, what causes a lot of confusion is that various science fiction properties, once you get past lieutenant, they
just mix up all the officer ranks.
Yeah, I mean, some places a commander is inferior to a captain, and in Star Wars, a commander is superior to captain. Major's traditionally superior to a captain. Here, it's not, and so you just have to know whatever the hierarchy is, and it changes because it's not even the same as it was in Legends to the current canon either. There was countless guidebooks that put out what the hierarchy of ranks were, and it changed between the Rebellion and the Empire too.
Yeah.
And so now we've got something that's different than all that. But anyway, let's get this episode wrapped up here, and we got a few topics to talk about regarding the rest of the season.
Yeah.
But so they finally deliver the intel to Leia. She praises Kaz and his actions, and basically says that they're going to need more like him. So, that was a nice, tidy finish. I like it. Like I kind of said earlier, we're getting these breadcrumbs that are leading the Resistance closer to the First Order. I get the feeling that whenever Poe's gone, he's off looking for Lor Santeca or doing some of the things that showed up in the Poe comic. At least I kind of hope that's what's going on there. But did either of you have any thoughts on the conclusion of this episode?
I mean, not really, other than basically everything that you've already said. I guess a hot space opinion on my part is, I wasn't really all that impressed with the Leia character. As far as the portrayal and everything. And I know that there are so many people that were like, oh, so great, so great. I mean, yeah, it was great to get something from her character and to get an appearance. But I mean, I don't know. I was kind of left feeling a little, I hate to say it, but a little disappointed. But the rest of the entire episode for me was really good as far as setting some things up and kind of putting some ideas into our heads as far as what has been and where we could be going, and in different kinds of things that way. So I did appreciate.
Did you think perhaps that they portrayed Leia as a little too weary and not enough
fight?
Well, not enough that she was going to get something done. I don't know. Even she's got the weight of the world on her shoulders in The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. But even despite that, I think, as you were just about to say, Tax, she's a fighter. And it is we have things we have to do. We're going to go get them done. And here she just kind of seemed resigned. I don't know. I'm agreeing with you, Jay, that there was something off about the portrayal.
I didn't feel the fire, that spirit.
Yeah, that's a good word.
It was almost very like a monotone sort of a portrayal. So yeah, I was kind of left wanting a little more.
That could have something to do with referencing earlier the switch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if it was very last minute, then perhaps the new voice actor was like just literally like waking up that morning going, okay, I got this. You know what I mean? And maybe didn't have enough time to prep, or I don't know.
Okay, mic off.
Yeah. All we can do is kind of speculate at this point.
Speculate hard.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and give our grades for this issue, and then we can hit it on a few items about the first half of the season. So, Jay, how are you going to do with this one?
Like I said, I really appreciated this episode for a lot of different reasons. Definitely some pros and cons here. And overall, I do think that it is leading us in the right direction as far as the way that the storyline is heading and setting up some of the characters, setting up some of the storylines. Like I said, as I said, I really loved the way that Phasma was portrayed in this one. I liked a lot of the little callbacks in this one with the droid. Because we get to see that one in Battlefront 2 a little bit now too, and there was even a reference to being sitting ducks, and it just there's a joke that some friends and I had that was like, "What's a duck?" You know?
Yeah,
so
from the old novelization.
Yeah, so that was kind of fun with that one too. So I think overall, I'd probably give this one. I'm going to give it an A-. It was a really good episode.
Okay.
Texas?
Well, I really loved this episode. It was super fun. The action was great. The space fighting was great. It was really fun. You know, the banter was great. It felt natural. You know, they've really got the Poe Kaz back and forth down well. The writers do. We saw more of the First Order. You're right. This is about the resistance against the First Order. So instead of being like, I'm going to be a pilot and fly my heart dream. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, you're trying to defeat the First Order, right? Let's get back to the wars part in Star Wars. And so that's why I loved it. Now, if this is a midterm, not a midterm, I guess this would be a semester final, right? And you're comparing like the rest of the body work from the student, and you're seeing their final essay and you're very impressed with what you got, you're probably going to bump their grade up just a little more than you naturally would. So I'm going to give them an A+ with this one.
Wow.
I really liked it a lot. I had fun with this.
You.
I mean, I've been having fun with them. I have not been so like, meh. You know what I mean? I've been enjoying it, but this one, I think they're really starting to gel. I think they're starting to get in a rhythm, especially when it comes to the conflict with the First Order. I mean, it felt like a really fun video game. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Okay.
I'm just impressed with you getting all like academically inclined here, and it's good timing because all the kids are getting done with their semester break right now.
Well, somebody was raised in the fields of academia and on the hallowed grounds of a campus, you realize, Jay.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and give this one an A- as well. I think there was some momentum established with this episode. I hope it carries through into the second half of the season. It's not quite an A+ yet for me in that range. And it's something I've been kind of saying now for a little while, is that there's a lot of great parts to these episodes. However, they have not meshed them all together very well. Rebels had lots of fantastic parts. When we put all those things together, the sum was greater than the parts. And so you get a lot of these episodes that would just blow out of the water. There was some that I remember when we talked about that we were a little disappointed in overall in the execution. But regardless of the episode, I always remember thinking when I was watching Rebels, I loved Kanan, I loved Ezra and Hera and Sabine and Zeb and Chopper and all of them. And I like Kaz and Yeager and Tam. Niku's kind of annoying. But it's the, it's like, when Poe shows up and Phasma shows up, like, right, we got Poe and we got Phasma, and Oscar Isaac and Gwendolyn Christie do a great job with them. And I feel like they nail it, and hit it out of the park each time. And that really, really helped this episode. And I am excited to see what's going to come next. But, when you take those characters out, like, we kind of have a lackluster performance for Leia in this, which was a little disappointing. Yes. It was good to see her, but the performance wasn't that great. So it's still kind of lacking a little something there. It needs just a little bit more polish, I think, in this. And I think we need to see some of the characters a bit more frequently so that we can get to know them and we can get a little bit more attached to them. We need a bit more interaction from them. I mean, Kaz and Tam are keeping each other at arm's length. Tora suspects things about Kaz. We don't have like these relationships yet between the characters.
And where's the pirate girl?
Sonara?
Yeah.
Sonara, right. Yeah. And so she's up there. But anyway, so that's my final thought. It's an A-. Like I said, I hope this gets some momentum for the series going into the second half of the season and for seasons to come. All right. Well, that does it for the discussion of Station Theta Black, but let's just kind of hit on a few things from the season as a whole. We kind of all alluded to, our overall thoughts so far, but one of the things I kind of want to know about is what's going on with the Aces. We've had them sitting around for an awful lot of episodes. We've seen them fly off to escort freighters in. As I was alluding to earlier during our discussion of Station Theta Black, this show was promoted about being all about all these racers on this station, and it made no sense for a show called Resistance. This was my memory at the time. So, what is your opinion on this and these aces? I mean, is it just someone that was marketing the show that got things wrong, or do you feel like that they have a bigger role to play that we'll see later, or where are you with them?
That's a really good question, because you're absolutely right. There's not a whole lot of cohesiveness as far as where our focus should be in terms of, like you said, is this a racer show? Is this a show about the resistance being like the rebels, that kind of thing? So where's our focus? So yeah, I definitely agree with you on that one. And a lot of the other things that you just said too, you very well put in terms of all of these different characters. Like, we're setting things up and setting things up, but it doesn't ever seem like we get the ball rolling. And you don't really get invested in these characters, at least like you said with Rebels, you were so looking forward to seeing what Kanan brought, or, Ezra brought, or Hera brought to the episode. But and like you said, I like Kaz, I like Yeager, I love Sonara, very cool, but there's not, I don't get that excitement yet, and I'm still waiting for that. So yeah, that you said pretty much everything that I was feeling myself. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, now that we've said that about these characters, is we kind of got 3 distinct groups of characters, 4 maybe. You got the Colossus Station characters, Tam, Yeager, Nico, Doza, Tora, and the Aces. You have the pirates, Craig and Gore in his game. There's the First Order characters. And I'm talking about the new characters, so this is omitting people like Poe and such. And then there's the First Order group, Major Von Reg and Commander Pyre. So let's just kind of take each one of those groups individually. Is there anyone of the Colossus Station characters, is there anyone that stands out to you that you think is a great addition to Star Wars, or it's just kind of become a favorite?
For me, probably Yeager. I really like him a lot. And we got to see some more of his backstory with his brother. And I'm definitely looking forward to a lot more. And I do like Tora. I guess she's part of the Colossus Station. She's sort of a puzzle piece that fits into a lot of different areas, really. I mean, if you think about it. So it'll be interesting to see how they utilize her.
Yeah, for the purpose of this discussion, I was including her in that Colossus Station characters with Doze and the rest. But how about you, Taxus?
Yeah, so I kind of like the bar patrons. I kind of like the what's her name that runs the thing?
Auntie Z?
Yeah, I kind of like her. I think she's a good addition. They also the Imperial pilot, or at least the ex-Imperial pilot. That's a pretty cool one. I sort of like how they're kind of recurring characters. I sort of like how they're always willing to bet against anything that Kaz is involved with. It's a little comic relief. It's fun.
Definitely. Kaz has definitely become the butt of jokes and misfortune there on the station.
Right.
Yeah, for me, I think the character, I don't know, for some reason I'm drawn to Tam. I like her an awful lot. I think, she's kind of no nonsense. She knows something's going up. I think she kind of resents the fact that it's obvious that there's something going on, but no one will include her in that discussion.
Yeah.
And she's not stupid. She doesn't buy the explanations that they're giving her. It's like, so Yeager took Kaz on a salvaging mission, and there was no salvaging mission on the board today. Or, great, you just let Kaz run off with the fireball, even though I was working on it. No one bothered to tell me. It's just, she's smart, and she's letting everyone know that I don't buy your nonsense. It's, so anyways, I've come to like her. I was going to ask if we had a favorite pirate character, but there's really 2.
Yeah, right.
Personalities. We got Craig and Gore and Sonara.
Right.
And I think, Sonara may be in the process of pulling a callus and defecting over to the Colossus Station group. And I think they're both incredibly cool. I like all this borrowed or salvaged Imperial tech that they've got. I think they've done a really good job establishing them. For my criticisms of the show, one of the things it does exceptionally well is all this subtle world building. With the, for instance, with the pirates, they've got all these, what they would call in the Legends universe, uglies, which is ships clobbered together from other ships.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, they don't put big neon signs on things, but you got old Jedi starfighters, you got Imperial shuttles, parts of TIE fighters and X-wings and Y-wings that are being used in these ships, and they do a very good job with that. They blend in aliens from all across the saga and Rogue One and Solo Star Wars Story, and so they've done you've got this thriving, really well. Mm-hmm. A technological station, but it's got a full market on it, that looks like it's straight out of Mos Espa from the Phantom Menace. So that I think is done. That's an exceptional part of this as well. What do you all think of the new Imperial characters in Major Vonreg and Commander Pyre?
I think they're a really good addition. Vonreg is definitely a very interesting character. As you said, he's a little bit hard to read in terms of, is he really following what he's supposed to be doing? Just like in this last episode, he was kind of challenging Phasma, and so where's his loyalties? Where are his aspirations, I guess you could say. So he's kind of an interesting one. I think we're going to have to keep a really close eye on him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like them. I think I like Vonreg better than Golden Boy, or whatever he is.
Pyre?
Yeah, Pyre. And, he seems... Vonreg, he's more intriguing to me. Let me say that. And so, Pyre is just sort of like, I don't know, it kind of feels like, hey, we need somebody who's, kind of like Phasma, but we can't have Gwendolyn Christie on every episode. You know what I mean? So, what kind of metallic color can we make her? Oh, yeah, or make this person. Oh, we'll do gold. Yeah, silver and gold. Hey, Christmas.
Yeah. I like Vonreg, I don't know why, it just reminds me of Cardinal a little bit. And it's mainly because of red. I think there's something to that.
And he also, you know what else he reminds me of? Dennis, do you remember the Wild Weasel pilot from G.I. Joe?
A little bit, yeah. Yeah.
Wait. Yeah, his code name was Wild Weasel, I think. But yeah, it was the Rattler pilot. The helmet and everything kind of reminds me. And he wore all red, like, flight suit and a helmet.
And for some reason, I keep thinking of the Imperial pilots, like Baron Onrato or something like that, from Rebels, that kept getting shot down by Hera and company. I don't know, but for some reason, I don't know. Vonreg reminds me of him. I keep expecting him to kind of get shot down and get all perturbed about it, and for Kaz to mouth off to him, kind of like the way Ezra did to the Baron. But anyway, here's another issue I wanted to point out, and then we may talk about a favorite episode or something. But one of the other things is that I think that added intrigue to Rebels was the presence of Kanan and Ezra, a couple Jedi that they weren't around for A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. They weren't part of that rebellion, and so we knew something that was going to happen to these characters because they had a shelf life. I mean, even Dave Filoni said in some panel somewhere, it's like, none of these characters show up in A New Hope, so something's got to happen. So we were sticking around for that story. Similarly, Kaz and company aren't around for The Force Awakens. But given that, I just don't feel the same intrigue or the draw to tune in every week to see what it is that's going to happen. That we don't see him in The Force Awakens. Am I the only one thinking that, or is it just kind of or am I making too much of that? Because I really do feel like part of the draw to Rebels was finding out what happened to these Jedi that we never saw again after that timeline.
No, I'm totally with you on that. And like I said, it's just, I'm not as emotionally invested in these characters. They're interesting to a point, and it does lend some interesting angles to the stories and, leading us up to these other movies. But, realistically speaking, I almost feel like these are stories in a way that are kind of apart from the rest of the timeline. And I don't know, I guess that's a horrible way to look at it, but yeah, I mean, it's not that I don't care what happens to Kaz and Yeager and Tam and everyone else, but I just don't feel that same connection. And I I agree with you on that.
It's almost like this would be better if they just, instead of launching it on the Disney Kiddie network, you know what I mean? They just figured out, hey, guess what? They're about to, right? With their own network or, streaming service. But, and they could have maybe, instead of having him be like a kid, or at least, I mean, he's not even supposed to really be a kid because he was in the Navy, for crying out loud. You know what I mean?
Right.
And he was a pilot. I mean, it's almost like if they just went a little older, you know what I mean? And he's a little savvier, and maybe it's a little more cloak and dagger instead of cloak and stagger,
Yeah.
That would,
good way to put
thank
it.
you. Then he would, then people would be a little more invested. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we're going to see, Ezra grew up a lot over the 4 seasons of Rebels, and I kind of expect that we're going to see something similar with Kaz. But that being said, I feel like Ezra started from a much better place. He wasn't nearly as naive. He was a lot more streetwise. And, Kaz he's figuring it out. He's figuring out what he doesn't know. He just said, it was like an episode or two ago, it's like, I was left on Colossus Station to be a spy, but no one ever taught me how to be a spy. And I'm supposed to be a mechanic, and no one ever taught me how to be a mechanic. He knows he's got all these shortcomings, whereas earlier in the season, he's like, I'm a spy. I'm going to go spy. And he's trying to convince everyone he's a good mechanic, too, when he's clearly not. So he's become aware of that, which is a sign of maturity, and I kind of hope they continue with that. But did you guys have a favorite episode from the first half of the season?
For me, I have to say Sonara's score is probably my favorite. And then a close second would be, I can't think of the name of the episode, but the one with Yeager's brother.
Yes. Okay.
So those are my 2 favorites.
How about you, Taxus?
I think this last one actually was. Yeah, this is my favorite.
I agree. This episode and Signal from Sector 6, which introduced I do not know why I like the Kowakian ape lizard so much. And I remember the first time I saw the previews and the trailer, the teasers for that episode, and I was like, really? There's a gigantic Kowakian monkey lizard? But then, when you got into the episode guide, you're like, nope, it's a separate, distinct creature. It's like, that is all it took. And I kind of wish they had made more mention of that during the episode, that it wasn't just another Kowakian monkey lizard, that it was some other distinct creature. But I don't know, that just, again, it's back to that subtle world building I was talking about earlier. Having this other creature from the same world, just like on our own planet, that there is a resemblance between monkeys and apes. And so why wouldn't there be between, these same family of creatures from another planet, Kowakia, I guess. But and then, the pirate episode, this show definitely got better as the season progressed, and especially these last couple episodes. So, All right. Well, I think that's going to do it then for our discussion of Station Theta Black and the first half of the first season of Resistance. Before we go, what do you guys got going on for the Scoundrels to look forward to?
Well, for me, you can always catch me right here on Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels. And you can always go back to Coffee with Kenobi as well and check out my blogs there and my Core Worlds Couture fashion reviews.
I really got nothing going on. Sorry.
All right. Well, when he does have something going on, you can always find Taxus over on the Geek Supreme. And they've got several fun episodes lately.
We're on break though, so yeah.
All right. As for me, you can find my comic reviews on retrozap.com. Lately, I've been looking at the Age of Republic series. If you have not checked out the issue on Qui-Gon and the other issue on Darth Maul, they're incredible companion pieces. I highly recommend this work by Jody Hauser. Definitely worth it. So take a look at those. I'm also talking Star Wars comics each month with Jovial J. Shepard. For December, we were looking at the Lando Double or Nothing miniseries that ties into the solo Star Wars story, which is really good. We had a lot of fun talking about that. We'll probably be looking at the finale for Poe Dameron, as well as the most recent trade paperback for Star Wars soon. So be on the lookout for those. And then, of course, you can find my blog each month over on Coffee with Kenobi. And I am working on a series that's looking at the partnerships and relationships that take place in Solo and how they evolved in the course of that movie. If you want to find us on social media, we are at SQPod on Twitter and Instagram and on Facebook at facebook.com/SQPod. You can email us at sqpod@retrozap.com. We'd love to get your emails. We haven't been getting many of those lately. So, yeah, let us know what you've been thinking about Resistance. We'd love to share those. You can follow Darth Taxus on Twitter at Darth Taxus. Jay is at Joyce Krebs, and I am at DJKVER2. Also, Apple Podcasts / iTunes review would be really helpful right now. So if you've been thinking about doing that, we'd really appreciate that and consider it a late Christmas present. So, speaking of RetroZap, we are a proud part of the RetroZap.com podcast network. The network currently features more than a dozen shows covering everything from retro gaming and movies to the Animaniacs, collecting, Dune, Game of Thrones. Of course, there's a whole lot of Star Wars. You can subscribe to the network feed, and all those shows will show up in the same place. That's going to do it for this Scoundrels Special Edition. We'll talk to you soon with another edition of Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels. Until then, may the Force be with you.